Hello, everybody. Hello. Hey, everyone. Hello. Hi. Have you ever went to Photoshop and you were just like, what does this button do? What is that grid over there? And then you go to other tutorials and you're explained something, but the tutorial leaves a bunch of stuff out, and basically the tutorial's like, oh yeah, then you do this with a mask, but you have no idea what a mask is, and you're just left there wondering. Or there's like a button that you're assumed that you're supposed to know what that button does, but the person in the video never tells you what the button does because it's just for a different level of video and they don't assume that you're a beginner. This video basically covers every single thing. It assumes that you know nothing, even if you know something. It basically assumes that in terms of Photoshop, and it gives you this basically this package of all the buttons and tools and things you need to make sure that you don't like go to anything and just start swimming around and being like, oh my gosh, that looks scary. Because when you know what everything does, nothing's scary and it's not hard. And believe it or not, it's not gonna take weeks for you to learn Photoshop. This video, you're gonna be able to make whatever the heck you want through Photoshop, and basically just, whatever you can imagine. This will have all the tools you need to create something from thought to reality. So this will be a relief from basically just swimming around the internet and wondering, getting bits and pieces here and there, because it's all in one video, and it's just, it's really hard. I've been there with the situations where it's just like there's a ton of stuff, and it's just like, how do you press a mask, and why is this button not clicking? And it's like, so I'm giving you all the hotkeys, which is helpful. It's gonna keep things a little bit calmer and more chill. And yeah, just have fun with it. So let's get started. Okay, everybody, welcome to Photoshop. So over here, this is just the home screen, and we have home, we have learn tab over here where you can learn cool stuff. We have your files, which stores your files. Then you have, things that were shared with you. You have your Lightroom photos. Let's get just nice and comfortable, and that just loads like photographs that you've edited in Lightroom, and then stuff that you've recently deleted. So no big deal. So what we're going to do is press the blue button. We're going to click new file, and I'm going to just do default Photoshop size. I'm going to hit create. So now we have a nice beautiful blank canvas to work with our nice white background layer. And yeah, so I'm going to start dragging my my files in, dragging in my assets, as the fancy people say. I'm one of those fancy people. So I'm going to drag and drop, and it's as simple as that to add an image. Drag and drop it, then press return, the return button on your keyboard, and that lands it there. Now, if you want to go back to transforming it, notice how when I click it, it's not letting me click and drag it at all. Or, well, it is, but no like resizing options are coming up. So I'm just going to press Command T. Command T on Mac, I assume it's Control T for Windows. That allows you to show like these edges again. You could like resize your image, so that's pretty neat. Okay, so I'm going to press, once you're done transforming, Command T-ing it, whatever with the size and whatever, you just press return again, so it locks it into place. Not locks it, but just, confirms the edit. So now you have that. So I'm going to just make this a little bigger, so it just fills the screen. So I made this image. I didn't make this in Photoshop. I made this in an AI software called Ideogram, which I'll probably be doing a video on, but this is just a good starting point for our edit. So next I'm going to add an image of myself. So again, I'm going to go to my Finder. And so this is the first step that you really just want to do, is you want to add in your images, your assets that you want. So drag and drop. Okay, this looks good. I'm going to press enter again, so those marks go away. That looks great. Okay, now, because what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to blend myself with the background. And
I think that could look pretty interesting, pretty fun. And I'm also going to use some of the generative AI features that are built into Photoshop. So we're going to use every single tool and just get really down to playing around and getting really comfortable with the software. So you can use basically every part of it uh, on your own after this, and make anything that you could imagine. That's the goal at the end of this video. And people say, oh, you have to watch like an hour tutorial. You don't have to. You just have to get the clear instructions for the most important things, and then you'll be able to do the stuff. So, okay, let's look at the layout of the land over here. So on the left-hand side over here, you have your tools. On the top, you have your tools menu. On the right, you have just some, some random, forget about those. Those aren't a big deal. Go down here, adjustments. These are going to be your adjustment layers. So basically, I'll tell you how they work in a second. Then over here, important is your layers panel. So whatever is on the top is the thing you're going to see. So it works kind of like a sandwich. So if I drag, say, this layer of myself and I drag it underneath, see how it disappears? It's because it's now underneath the layer. So I'm just going to Command Z that to undo it. Very good setting if you don't know of it, Command Z. And so, yeah, let's start by going through each of the tools. So I'm going to go through each of the panels. Really easy stuff, not half as weird as it looks. So over here, what we have is, this is the move tool. You can just move things around like I've been showing you. Yeah. Then you have the artboard tool, which we don't need right now. Basically, it does stuff like it allows you to like have different canvases, work off of them at the same time. A canvas, in this case, this is what the big image is right here. This is the canvas. That's what they call it. And you can have multiple boards and be like, oh, I'm working on this and I'm working on that, and be creative. But we don't need to do that. A lot of people just work off of one. So then what we have here, and so, this is a good overview, because then you're going to just get a firm understanding of Photoshop, and you'll be able to talk the language with other people, which is really useful. So, all right, next, these are the selection tools. Now, the big things in Photoshop are selecting and masking and blending. So selection, masking, blending. Those three things are super important. Those are Photoshop, okay? So selecting, basically what it does, it's cutting it out, using different tools to cut things out in the most accurate way possible. Blending is, and I'll show you that in a little bit, is where you basically, it's kind of like opacity, except it's a more complicated version where basically it makes much more realistic blends together. It mixes together certain parts of lights and darks to make things just really nicely, realistically blended together. So I really love the blending tools. And then next, the masking is basically where, and this is what we're going to be doing. Instead of, because, you could use a cutout tool and delete whatever's around it. That's great, but that's called destructive. It's called destructive editing, because I'll make myself a little bigger as I explain this. Destructive editing is when you cut something out and it's basically, it's basically like you cut it out and it's all gone once you delete it, once you erase it. And that's the mistake, or not mistake, but that's the thing that often people do by accident when they're first starting out. You want to use masks from the beginning. You don't want to know how long it took me until I figured out about masks. So, with a mask, what ends up happening, masks in Photoshop, basically it's just like saying, okay, we're going to temporarily hide this area. And if we want to reveal the area, you know how a mask hides the face? It's just basically putting blackness, or not blackness, sorry, that's confusing. Basically temporarily erasing things so that you can bring it back whenever you feel like with the paintbrush. So you paint in more of the image to like basically unerase things, or you can erase things. You can go back and forth, and I'll show you how to do that. And it's very helpful. And you can do that with opacity too, so you can just brush in a little bit of it. So it's like, you'll see what I mean in a little while. But yeah, masking, it's like a cutout. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, so let's go through every single tool, shall we? All right, so over here, let's go through the cutout tools. So if I say cut out this image of myself with this, it's basically kind of like cropping. I'm just going to say, okay, and then see at the top here, there's a new toolbar. This toolbar changes, this is the tool settings, and it changes with whatever tool you have selected from over here. So right now with this one, it has select and mask as the tool settings, so I'm going to click that. And then you get a pretty cool menu over here, nothing fancy. just to refine things, mess around. But over here, see what it did when I cut that out and I masked it. It made a cutout of my, it made it like cropped. So that's like what that tool does. So I'm just going to press OK. Whoops. Sorry, let me go back into that. So let me go to the top again, select mask. See, the reason why this is what's going to happen to you, if you're not aware, is this part, output to selection. You want to always make sure that's output to layer mask. And because otherwise, if it's just a selection, it won't cut anything out. So always make sure layer mask. If you do new layer, you don't want to do that either, because what ends up happening with that is that you're doing a destructive edit. Like I said, basically you're cutting everything out, deleting it. You want to do it as a mask. So then that way it's just temporary. You can bring the stuff back, basically. You can bring back whatever was erased around that. So I'm just going to put down select as a layer mask. Okay. Now, as you see, the edit stayed, right? Now, this is a thing, it's very simple, but a lot of people don't freaking mention this. They assume everybody knows it, and that's not true. A lot of people don't know it, and they struggle with it because it's not so obvious. Anyway, so you see what happened when we created a new layer mask, and I just wanted to point this out. See that black thing with the white that appeared as a link next to our image layer? What that is this is the cutout. So if I double click, can I double click on this? Can I, let's see. Well, basically, at the moment I'm not remembering how to preview this, but basically, what it did is it made a black and white cutout, which is really useful. And all that black is the stuff that's hidden. The white area is the stuff that's revealed. So see that? So this is really helpful. Masking is hiding and revealing, black and white. And see what, let's just use this as a really quick example of masking, real quick, with this simple tool. We'll go through the rest of the selection tools, but let's just start it off simple. So, everything's simple. So now what we're going to do to continue our refining the mask or whatever, we're going to go to the brush tool. And remember, this video is just an overview of everything about Photoshop, so you can get your hands dirty and get comfortable in it. Look, there's two of me. So let's go to the brush tool. Now, you may be asking, isn't the brush tool for painting? It's for more than painting, and this is another thing a lot of videos do not cover. Basically, see if this was red, this wouldn't work. What we have to do, if this was like, well, it's not doing it anyway right now because I have the mask selected. But basically, if this was like that coloring, that wouldn't work. So what we have to do when we click on the layer, we go back to the layer, and before we edit the mask, what we have to do is see that little masky thing? It's pretty intuitive. You click the mask, don't just click the layer, because otherwise, like I said, you're just going to be painting on the layer, and that's where a lot of people run into trouble too. It's very simple. Don't do that. Just press Command Z to undo it. So what you do is you press the little mask image, like I told you, the black and white hiding, showing thing. Then what we're going to do is go to these things. We have to set these to black and white. Why? It's very interesting. Again, the paintbrush is not just for painting, it's for masking. Really important. So I'm going to set one color to white and one color to black. I did that quickly, but you can select any color, so I just dragged it to the corner to get a nice white. And so now what's going to happen, as you're going to see when I click and drag on the image, what's happening? I am erasing. I am not just painting, I am erasing things. So you can adjust the settings of the paintbrush that you're using to hide and erase, and this is what the masking process is, hiding and erasing. You go here, you can adjust the opacity and the flow and the size. So over here is the size, very important. So I'm going to do like this size, because when it's smaller, it just shows small. So I'm just going to, this is like a grand tour of Photoshop, y'all. So it doesn't have to be hard, like everybody said, that's a lie. Well, I mean, it's true for some. Well, it doesn't have to be. When people say it has to be hard, that's the lie. So, okay, this is really good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the opacity. I want it to be a little bit soft, so then that way, I don't, another really important thing is hardness of the brush. You don't want it to be so hard unless you want it to be like, I'm from Windows Photo Editor. No. What you want to do is have a little softness, because that makes it usually a lot more realistic. So see, now the edge is a little bit fuzzy, which is what you want. By the way, I can zoom in and out of my canvas. This is a cool control thing. I could, if I pinch, open, and close with my fingers, that's all you have to do to zoom in and out. And to go to different parts of the canvas, you use your two fingers and you just scrub around like that. You move it around the screen like that. So that's a really easy way to navigate. Go like that. Really easy on your trackpad. So back to Photoshop. What I'm going to do is, with this new brush, with it being kind of soft, adjusted the hardness, opacity I adjusted. What I'm going to want to do is just click. Actually, I want it to be 100% opacity. Yeah, because I don't want anything left over. Like, see that little bit of square over there? Like, you don't want that. So I'm just going to have it. These are the kind of little settings. It's just like tweaking. Like, oh, I want a little bit more. You know, you know what I mean. I want a little bit more uh, paint or whatever, a little bit less blurriness. I don't know what kind of accent that was, to be honest. So anyway, so let's click. Okay, see, now this is cool. Now if you notice, it's a little bit, the way it's going is a little bit choppy, the way I'm painting it. And that can have to do with, I believe, flow. Well, I don't know. Maybe keep the flow up there a little more. All right, so see these ongoing little adjustments. It's helpful. You'll get used to it. But yeah, so I'm just gently painting. Now, see this. Okay, this is cool. Okay, this is cool. So you see, now this is just, I'm just showing you like the manual way of doing things. No, there's a much easier, faster way to cut people out. I'm just showing you like, okay, this actually, I did a nice job cutting me out there. Not gonna lie. Okay, so, all right, so say we have, oh, it's such a pretty cutout, great. But then all of a sudden, watch this. Oh no, I cut my face out. Well, of course you can press Command Z, but what if you did that and then you made a bunch of other really good edits and you're like, but I don't want to undo, and then go back and not have done those other edits. So what you can do, magic button, X. Now what X does, I'll give you a couple more hotkeys because this is really important. X, see these buttons, see how these are changing, the blacks in front, the whites in front. Now when the black's in front, I'm erasing my face. Oh no, white's in front. Just like I told you, the white is the part that's showing. I fill in my face. So it unerases. It is an uneraser. This is what makes masking so wonderful. So that's really helpful. So, yeah, so this is an interesting image. So what we're going to do next is, basically, we're going to, let's see, what else do I want to show you? We jumped ahead the paintbrush, which is really good as a tool. Okay. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna remove my masks just so I can keep showing you the rest of the cutout tools. I am going to go to here. I'm gonna click delete on the mask. See what that did? So this is another really important point. When I press this little mask, not the layer, because if I click the whole layer, see I'm all gone. I deleted myself. Don't do that. What you do is you want to click the little layer mask thumbnail, which is more important than a lot of people say. I'm going to click that, press delete. Voila, the mask is away and nothing was deleted. It was just hidden at the time when I was editing it. Very useful. So let's go back to the other selection tools. And we're also going to talk about how to export. That's really important point. So let's go to, let's see, we have rectangular marquee. Yeah, so you can imagine what the circular one does, and you make a circle. I mean, this is the rectangle. By the way, Command D is very useful because if you make a selection and it's like, oh, it's a selection, how do I undo that? That's always important. Command D, and I'm sure it's Control D on Windows, but that makes the selection disappear. Very critical. Oh yeah, I remember the one thing I wanted to show you, one more thing about the brush, is the brush size. So there's a hotkey for brush size. So there are two brackets, the left and right brackets on your keyboard. They allow you to just make it bigger and smaller, so you don't have to go all the way to this menu. You just basically press the brackets and voila. You can make it as big or as small as you want. Really helpful. Left bracket is smaller, right bracket is bigger. So I wanted to show you that. That was the thing I was missing. Okay, so back to the selection tools. So remember, the order is selection, and then you go to masking, and then if you want, blending. And then after all of this, there's like the final things to make a composite, as they call it when you combine images. Composite to make things more shiny, or how do you say? Make things more, you want to add grain and filters to kind of combine all the colors together. You want to color correct. Those are also really important parts. And those are just the little, the cherries on the top of the cake or whatever. All right, so let's go to magnetic lasso. So these are the selection tools again. So there is circular. You can make a selection like that, and then, I would select and mask that or whatever. But, that makes the circular selection, Command D. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to magnetic lasso tool. So what that does is it's very helpful. See how, if you're careful with it, and while you do this, you might want to zoom in a bit. Oh, sheesh. Yeah, this one can be a little bit of a funny tool because you have to trace it the right way. Otherwise, it gets really out of hand. But let's go back to, out of this tool. The thing is, I haven't quite learned how to get out of it in a very graceful way, so it just kind of stays stuck. So I'm just going to press another tool to get out of it. So be aware with this one until I figure out a way to get out of it. Command D, undo that selection. So now we're going to go to the lasso tool. So lasso is pretty cool because what it does, I see I'm freezing up here. What it does is it allows anything that I select to become my selection. So I can press, I can press up here, select and mask, and do the same thing I did with the square. And so, by the way I've been accessing, how I just accessed the lasso tool to the polygonal? What you have to do, see, there's a little arrow at the edge of each tool. So they have like little, like other tools within the cover image of the tool. So it's like the tool itself has a cover image, and then it has like 2 or 3 other tools a lot of the time. So what you have to do to access those other tools is you have to hold down your mouse on any of these, and then you can click on one. So you do a longer press, and then you press, you select the tool you want, or you can just hold down your mouse and then click one, and then it'll select it. Yeah, so that's how I did that. I forgot to explain that. So anyway, so let's go back to lasso. So whatever you lasso is the thing that you get. Then you get polygonal lasso tool. That's helpful when you want to make like something similar to a pen tool selection. So you can just like click, 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 and then create that kind of thing as a then you press enter. So that's the button you want to press with that lasso tool. Alright, so we have several tools over there. This one next, so we checked out the selection tools. Next we have, or we checked out some of the selection tools. We have the, so I showed you the object selection, quick selection tool. That's a really good one because it does automatic selecting on a subject. If you notice, it's really good about that. You can really I use this one very often. It just does a really nice job. And again, press option. I don't know if I said this yet, but press option to get rid of option click. Then see the little plus sign in the middle of the circle turns to a negative sign. That means that like you're subtracting, not adding to the selection. To make this smaller, I'm going to make this smaller for the brackets. You get the idea, yeah. Then what we have, press Command D, then what we have is the magic wand tool. This selects by color more so. So if I say click on my shirt, it'll do a good job selecting like single color. I don't use it a lot except for like solid backgrounds. So yeah, generally speaking, I wouldn't say it's the very best, but it could be useful for specific situations. Alright, then what we have here is, this is the crop tool. So it basically crops the whole entire board. So say if I wanted my artboard, that's what it's called, to be more this size, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is the only part of the artboard. And I don't recommend using this tool usually. It's nothing, nothing I really usually need. But that's what I would do, and then I press done. I'm just gonna press Command Z on that because I don't want that. Then we have over here Perspective Crop Tool. Perspective Crop Tool, what that does is basically it crops, like it says, crops an image to correct distortions caused by perspective. We're not going to sample that right now, but it's a good tool to know about. So then we have Slice Tool. I don't use those tools that much. Then over here, this is the Frame Tool. Oh yeah, this is good for creating things like mock-ups. So if I put this, say, on my shirt or something like that, and then I drag and drop an image onto here, usually it'll help replace the image, or like you can just create templates for different things. It's useful. Different shapes for that too. There's a circular one if you wanted to draw a circle. Yeah. Then over here is the eyedropper tool. I'll take this out. Now what the eyedropper tool does is you can click on any part of the image and see what it does is it can select the color and add it to here, which is useful for matching colors with your paintbrush or other things like that. So that's really a nice feature there. Then we have Color Sampler. I don't use these tools that much. The ruler tool just helps you rule things and measure. Then we have Healing Brush, Clone Stamp tool. Those are cool to know about. Basically, Clone Stamp clones a certain part of the image and you can stamp it out. So just to show you a little bit of how that works, I would press Option on my keyboard, on my Mac keyboard. Say if I had an eye there and I wanted to, you have to rasterize it before. What happens when you rasterize a layer is, just to get you familiar with the term, is that you are basically not making it be, how do you say, it would be destructive edits with certain tools. Like basically you wouldn't be able to go back in time and undo them or whatever. So I don't want to rasterize right now. We'll get into that more another time. There's the pattern stamp tool. We don't need those. Yep, healing tool, remove tool, patch tool. Those are all very useful, but I'm not even going to go into those because we're going to go into generative fill, which can do what most of these tools do, believe it or not. Then we have over here is history brush tool, art history brush. We have our eraser that erases stuff. We have our paint bucket, which you can fill an area that you select with a solid color and just click on it. So you make a selection, then click with whatever color's in here, it'll fill it up with that. So that can be cool. This is smudging. It smudges and blends colors together, good for painting. This is, but yeah, just to give you a little bit of a verbal overview over here. Just so you know the layout and you can speak the same language when you talk to other people. There's the red eye tool over here, content aware move tool. Now, I'm not sure quite what that is, but that looks interesting. Patch tool. Patch tool is pretty cool because basically, yeah, we can replace the selected area with pixels from another part of the image. See how that works there? That's pretty cool. Healing brush tool, and they'll give you a little preview here. Repair imperfections by painting with pixels from another part of the image. Similar. Yeah, but like I said, you can do all this kind of stuff with generative fill. These are, I guess now you can say, older tools since generative fill came out. Then there's dodge tool. Dodge and burn are very useful because you can just, if I go over to, I don't have a mask right now, haha, but excuse me. First, what you would want to do is create a mask. Then you would, I guess I'll just rasterize the layer. But normally this would be like a mask or whatever. So like dodging and burning, it darkens different areas. You can adjust the softness of the brush over here with the brush settings, which is, helpful. But in terms of like, say if I wanted to make my eyes a little bit brighter, I could use the, what's this tool? The dodge tool. to zoom like way in and just make the brush smaller, and then just really light up my eyes. Just really add some more light over there. Now I'm doing the flesh itself. You know what I mean? Like if I made my brush a lot smaller, I could lighten my teeth up. You know, I could do stuff like that. I can make those kinds of really detailed edits. Yeah. So then what we have is type. You know, you could type things with the type tool, and we're just getting comfortable. So if I type over here, I could double click. I could just start typing, like, you know. Then we have our drawing tools with, it's very helpful for just drawing things in this software. There's the rectangle tool, triangle tool, you know, different shapes, line tool. I'm not really sure what the custom shapes tool does, but you know, these are great because you can just create shapes, and then up here in the changing menu up here, it changes based on the tool that's selected. You can change your fill, you can add a stroke, or you can tell it no stroke, but you can add a stroke, and then I can put this to however thick I may want it to be. And you can see how helpful this could be for different projects. There's just different features, and you can actually click on these guys to round off the edges, so you can see how helpful that can be for design work. All right, so let's take a look before we get to the blend layers. Well, actually, let's take a look at the blend layers because this is pretty helpful too. So I'm going to move myself over here, and if we go to here, we just click. If we just select this image right here, and then we go to over here, see this little unassuming area? Very easy. Took me a while to realize this. But blend modes, you know, it's different than opacity because it blends the image together in very different ways. So if I go to normal, we can go to dissolve. We can go to darken, so you can see the interesting effects. So opacity, let me just show you. Opacity is over here, right? And you can see this is the difference between opacity and blend layers. It's kind of just like an even blending of like what you can see versus what you can't. But the other one does a fancier thing with like different colors and whatever. So you can go to just mouse over them to see their effects. So there's darken, there's multiply, there's color burn, which can have a really interesting effect. Yeah, that's really cool. You can see that being a great piece. Then there's linear burn. There's dark color. So you can see how when combined with a mask, how this can be very effective. I like this. Lighten looks really cool. I like screen looks really interesting. Color dodge. Yeah, that's really cool. So see, each one of these could be just an individual fancy piece. I know I'm completely frozen right now, haha. But I don't think you need to see my face talking in order to, of course, understand this. So there's soft light, hard light. Yeah, so just play around, experiment, see what you like. And you can get so many cool effects. And think about if it was only, if it was on a mask. If this was a mask we were playing with, it would only be applied to just a certain part of the image, which would be very interesting. So yeah, and sometimes what you can do too is just delete. You can make a duplicate of the image. So if you say for instance, if you just wanted to affect me, you would make a second copy of this layer, right? It's the same exact layer, but on the top layer, you would make a mask and cut me out. So then the background's still there, but the ultimate effect would be if you cut just me out of, the top layer here, you would basically have just me affected, because pictured this way, it's like a sandwich, right? If you have the background still, you're just have two images of the same image, but the first one is the only one that has a cutout, and it's cut out of me. The background's still there since you have the duplicate. So I think that, that's pretty well explained over there. Let's see if we can unfreeze me. Sometimes these buttons work, sometimes they don't. But one is select subject, where it's supposed to just automatically cut you out of the image. The second one, remove background, where it just, well, no. Select subject makes an automatic selection, supposedly, of the person. Remove background automatically removes the background. So that's helpful. But let's talk about generative fill. And then after that, we'll move on to filters to just show how you can blend everything together and give it its final finishing touches in a composite. But let's talk about generative fill, so you can get very creative with this. So let's start by making a selection. We'll do object selection. Okay, so you see I can just select myself, make a selection like that, and then after I do that, so I'm using the object selection tool right now, which is perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to, and you see you can combine the selection tools, quick selection, using brackets, making it a little bigger. I'm going to press option, and I just want to change my outfit. So let's see if I can change my, actually let's see if I can just change my pants. So I'm negativing my selection right now. I'm just gonna change my pants, right? So I'm going to tell it generative fill. See how that button pops up after there's a selection? It's that easy. But let's take a look. So none of these pants are freaking orange, which is rather frustrating. But let's see. We're gonna do just orange pants. This should be a little bit better. I think easier stuff is better for this thing. Okay, so after several generations, because you get 4 generations per prompt, so I did about 3 times, finally I got my orange pants. So that's pretty magical, especially in comparison to what we just had less than a year ago on here. That would have taken a while, replace the pants, find an image on Adobe stock, whatever. So that's really impressive technology. And to keep the file size, because you don't want the file size of the generative layer, and we're being very thorough over here, we don't want it to be too big, right? So the thing is, to keep the file size small, if you want to keep your computer running nicely, is you go to the properties panel, which is where our prompt stays, and then you can see all of your different variations that were generated. What you can do with the ones that you're not going to use, you can click it, you just press the trash button, and you can or you can just press shift and select a whole bunch of, can you do that on here? No, you have to do it one by one, so yeah, just keep pressing the trashes. That'll just make the file size a lot smaller. Yeah, helps save space. Ooh, my leg's missing. Let's get the orange pants back. So, another way you can use generative fill is to erase objects in the scene, and that's what you would use the healing brush for, or whatever, things like that. But let's see how you can do it very simply and easily with the universal tool of generative fill. So this time I'm going to use the lasso tool, which is basically just drawing an area around the area you want selected, drawing a circle around it. So say if I wanted to remove this emblem right here from my shirt. So I have it selected, and then I'm going to hit generative fill, and watch this. I'm actually not going to put anything into here saying what I want to generate. I'm going to let it generate without any prompt, which means it'll fill it in and remove the item I circled. So now I'm going to hit generate, and voila, there's absolutely nothing here. It did the perfect job of filling it in. Seamless, beautiful, one click. Remove anything from your images, amazing. Okay guys, now what we have is I added a little something with the generative fill. I added a hat, but now I'm going to use generative expand. So I'm going to go over here to our crop tool, and what I'm going to do is I am going to go out like this. I'm just going to make the image and the canvas bigger, and notice how there's all this empty space, right? I'm going to hit generate, and what it's going to do is it's going to expand the image. automatically. Oh, wow, it works to expand patterns too. That's very useful. Okay, so as you see, I will switch back to the selection tool, which is also the hotkey for that is V on your keyboard. So if I was here, I just press V and switch to that. So if I move this image, oh, that can happen. If I go and I take a look at this image over here, you're gonna see. I'm just moving it to the top so you can see it. Look at this. It expanded the image, which is really cool and impressive. It did a really nice job. It really tried. There's a few parts that you can kind of just tell. Other than that, it expanded things. And the newer version is supposed to be a lot more accurate, but this gives you an idea of what's possible and much more. This is much more than what it could do a year ago, that's for sure. Way, way, way more. Okay, great. So we did generative expand, and let's take a look at before we go into the filters as the final touch. I want to make sure we go into warping. Okay, to warp an image to look really interesting, funny. Say we have this moon over here that I cut out. So I'm going to click on it, press Command T for the transform option, so you can see I can resize it if I wanted to. But what I want to do is I am going to right click on it, which in my MacBook's case is tapping on it with 2 fingers, right click, and then I get this cool menu. I'm going to go through it real quick for a second. There's perspective, which you can change the perspective of something. Then there's distort, where you can distort something, really helpful. Command Z, right click again. I'm going to hit skew, where you can skew something to the edges, really cool. Right click, rotate, it's not a big deal. But let's look at warp. Now warps are not allowed for link layer masks. Okay, I guess I have to rasterize this. So I'm going to first rasterize this object, which means it's just going to be an ultimate object. It's going to have destructive edits. Only do this when it's like the last kind of move that you're going to make. So I'm going to right click on my layer, and like I said, this makes all the edits destructive or whatever. So I'm going to rasterize. Maybe if I can revert to smart object, right click, convert to smart object, Command T, right click. Where's warp? Warp. Okay, now we can do it. Haha. As a smart object. It's not rasterized, so that should be fine. At least I don't. Did I rasterize? It doesn't matter. Smart objects use that option. So now we have warp available. Watch what happens with warp. Look at this. Look at all that control you have. Like, this is a great tool. And so what I can do is I can quite literally form this into a really weird object, and I can just play with the shapes. I think I wonder if I use the pen tool, can I add? No, I can't. But this also leads me into a good tool, which I forgot to talk about, is the pen tool. This is good about making very specific selections. Right now, there's a few different pen tools here. There's a curvature pen tool, which is one of my favorites, but the pen tool is a lot more like just stiff. Oh, my battery's running out. But yeah, so what pen tool does is what you can do. I'm just going to click one of them and delete it. So these are called paths. That's another word for it. So if I click on my path over here, let me go back to the pen tool area. So I'm going to go back into my pen tool. Yep. And so this here path. Oh yeah, I'm going to go here and I'm going to click on add anchor point. I could click on here and add anchor points, which is really neat and useful. What I can do is I can click this, go bottom right paths, then I'm going to right click path and hit make selection. Press OK, and it turns your path into a very detailed selection. So So using the pen tool is another way of making a selection. I went a little quickly, but you could always just rewind the video. It's just a good thing to know how to do. Okay, now this is really important for filters. Before we add, and it took a little moment for me to figure this out, but before we add the filter, what we want to do is go down to our layer and right click it, and very nice fancy, oh, I'm hidden. Very nice fancy thing comes up here. But say for instance, I'm just gonna go back to rasterize because I wanna show you what I mean. If your layer is not, how do you say, if it's not, if it's just not, you know, how do you say, a smart object. Smart objects allow you to add filters, make it non-destructive. I can explain it better. But basically what it allows you to do is add filters to it, which is what we want to do during the final composite. So I'm going to right click down here and I'm going to select convert to smart object. Always do that before adding filters, otherwise some of your options could be grayed out and you can't select them. So click convert to smart object. So that's good. So you see this little thing appeared with this little document. That's good. And so then what we do is we go up here, click, make sure your Photoshop window is selected. Go up here and hit filter. Now there's a few different filters that I think we should explore a little bit of. And if we go to filter gallery, you can kind of see them because I think it's important to know that they exist. Where am I? Where's my, oh, there I am. There. So, hey, rude. I'll just keep me over here. So you can basically just, they're just filters that you can add artistic effects to your images, kind of basic ones, but nonetheless really interesting, and apparently a lot of people use them. Yeah, so you get the picture. There's different ones you can just experiment and play with. It could be a lot of fun for creating art pieces. I'm just going to press cancel on that. The one we really want to be thinking about is the either adding some noise, because adding noise really blends a composite together realistically if you say we're trying to just add images into an image that didn't exist yet. So you would just click like add noise, and this is just like one of the final steps to making an image look good together. Then I'd add an amount. See, there's some noise added. I'd press OK, and it just makes it look like it was taken on a camera instead of put together artificially, which is a great secret. These are like the final finishing touch stuff. But the thing that a lot of people use, which I guess I don't have installed right now, haha, but it is, darn it. Oh yeah, I do have it installed, sorry. Camera raw filter. That's the thing a lot of people use to add finishing touches to their composite. And I got all this I taught myself through YouTube, so a lot of trial and error. So I'm glad I'm putting all of this honestly into one video. So then that way it can just kind of be compiled into one place. So let's see. Okay, so yeah, this is really nice, clean interface, and you can just add the things that you need on here. Really just add your effects. Oh, I like how that looks actually, kind of texture. That's cool looking. But no, you can add like, your curves. This is important. So you can add like your color correction, which will ultimately allow you to blend your background with your foreground. Normally, actually, what I would do is, let me just press OK on that. A lot of the time, what people would do as the final steps on this thing is they would combine all of the layers into a smart object. So let's do that over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on background, and then I'm going to press convert to smart object because I don't want it to be a locked layer anymore, right? So what I'm going to do, and this can be undone, but what this does is it merges all of your layers into a single layer. I'm frozen again, aren't I? It merges all your layers into a single layer. So I clicked one layer. You see, I clicked one layer. Whoa, oops. Oh, this is important. See the little eyeball over there? This is the visibility icon. It can hide or show any of your layers. But yeah, keep those on for the most part. So let's look over here again. So I'm going to press shift. I'm going to select the layer, press shift, select another layer. And by the way, you can just, jumping around again a little bit, you can just rename a layer by double clicking on its title, and just, so this would be blue background. I think that's just helpful for you to know. But okay, so we have one layer selected. We have, and it's okay, my face is frozen. So one layer selected. I'm going to hold down shift, press another layer, the second layer. Then with my 2 fingers, I'm going to right click on one of the layers. This is going to apply to whatever layers are selected. And I'm going to select convert to smart object. And what this does is it creates one file. And again, I can undo this actually by saying convert to layers, and it'll just put it right back to the way it was. But I want it as a smart object right now. I just did that to show you. Yeah, so I want it like this. But right click convert to layers will put it back pretty much to normal. But okay, so over here we have a nice beautiful smart object. Alright, so again, the reason why I turned those objects into a smart object, to reiterate, the reason why I combined them all down, and again, you can undo that by right-clicking and saying, expand, whatever that option was to expand it that I just said. But my point is, the reason why I consolidated it all into a single smart object was because when I go to the final finishing menu, the filter, and then I go to camera raw filter, what happens is it will impact the entire thing. So now when I make the changes, basically it's not just going to be to the moon, it's going to be to the background and all the other layers. So I can affect, the clarity and the color, the temperature. It'll affect, oh, I like it. It can be an album cover. Okay. So I like that. But you can address, lens blur, optics. You can just have a lot of fun with this, get very creative. I'm going to press OK on that. And I'm going to apply my changes, and I really love the way that looks. One more thing I want to explore real quick with you is neural filters. So I just wanted to share with you guys how to do adjustment layers and clipping masks. Basically what a clipping mask does, say you wanted to add saturation, or see this adjustment area right here, you can add like single adjustments like hue, saturation, brightness, contrast, curves, vibrance, all the traditional stuff. But if you didn't want it to be added to and that's what the adjustments are. An adjustment layer, so those are adjustments that I just explained. Adjustment layer is a blank layer that you can put over on top of all your layers, and it'll affect everything underneath it. So it'll add an effect of some kind. You could add multiple adjustment layers. So it's basically a blank slate where it's just like, oh, this is a mini canvas over here, and I don't confuse it with the main canvas, of course, but it's like, oh, I want to add black and white, or I want to add saturation, or I want to put this on top of my whole thing. So you put the adjustment layer over here in the layers tab on top of all the layers. But the problem with that is it affects every single layer. How do you make sure that your adjustment layer, whether it's saturation or whatever you want it to be, and you could have multiple adjustment layers, how do you make sure it doesn't affect every single layer, but only, say, if I only wanted to affect this layer of me, and I only wanted to make myself black and white or something like that, and I didn't want the whole image to be black and white, what I would do is I would create what's called a clipping mask. Basically what a clipping mask does is it allows an effect to just affect one of your layers rather than the whole entire thing. That's a clipping mask. Now over here, first let's add an adjustment layer just to show you what I mean. Right here is a folder, by the way, if that looks unfamiliar. I put things in a folder. This is the folder button. Good to just let you know about that. So in terms of an adjustment layer, I could just add, honestly, any of these are adjustment layers. It's a little different, I guess. Is an adjustment layer a blank slate? I think it could be. It could be if you just add a new layer or whatever. If you just press this button, I'd say, oh yeah, I want this to be. But you could just directly add an adjustment layer over here instead of creating like a blank one. You can create one with the effect already in it over here. So I would click, where is this? Hold it down So I'm holding my finger down and I haven't unclicked yet. So I'm going to click and drag to, say, for instance, hue saturation, just for a clear example. Click that. Now this is on top. Now watch this. See how this is on top, and if I put the saturation down like this, it's affecting the whole image. Okay, say if I just want the backdrop to only be black and white. Let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this layer right above, directly above the backdrop. So this is my backdrop layer right here. This is my adjustment layer, the hue saturation. What I'm going to do now, it's still not going to work, as you see, because it's still going to affect... Well, actually it does work, but the point is that if you had a lot of layers and complicated situations, it would be hard to just make it like, oh, I'm dragging it on top and whatever's on top is fine. It doesn't work so well. So what you're going to do, just to make sure that it affects just this layer, is you're going to press with 2 fingers, tap this with 2 fingers, that's right click, and then you say clipping mask. You're going to look for a clipping mask. Create clipping mask, which is actually the hotkey for that is Option Command G. So Option Command G, I could press that, or I could right click and say create clipping mask. Now what that does is, even if there were other layers underneath this, basically it's just, even if I say wanted it and I'm dragging it up here, and I just wanted it to affect the car, right? When I drag it, the clipping mask disappears. Just don't forget that. But so let me re-add that. So I'm going to again press Option Command G. This time I did the hotkey, see? And now I'm going to adjust the saturation of just the car. And if you notice, the car is now, these little areas are red, the car is now in black and white, and it's not affecting the background, even though the background is underneath it. So that's really important to know. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about neural filters. And how I got to this menu over here is I went to filter, and where it was showing neural filters. I clicked there. This applied to my smart object. I don't know if any other things can do that, but when I made my layer into a smart object, that's what worked. Okay, so this is great because you can add skin smoothing, smart portrait, just some really fun things. Makeup transfer doesn't work too well in my opinion from what I've tried so far. You can mix landscapes, style transfer. The ones that feel very notable to me are colorize, where you can colorize a black and white image, and super zoom I wasn't very impressed with. But there's the sky replace. Actually, the sky replacement I think is under perhaps a different area. Odd. I thought sky replacement was here. Waitlist. Shadow regenerator. That's interesting. I am interested in that. So these are things they're apparently working on right now. Portrait generator. Feels a little spooky to me. Noise reduction. But no, see, I thought they had a sky replacement feature here. Anyway, photo restoration. This seems impressive. I haven't tried this yet. But yes, they have some cool stuff here. They used to have something where you can change the expression of people's faces. Do they have? Yeah, they still have that. I can make myself happy. Processing right now. We don't have to look at that because I can do it. You can do it. But the point is, you can change a lot of cool stuff. So, yeah, this has been Photoshop. Congratulations, you made it through most of it, and most of this whole thing. And yeah, I think. Oh, and to save, of course, you have to go to File. We haven't covered exporting yet. So save or save as. Then you can save it to your project files, or you can just save it to something else. But yeah, you can save it to different things. But I think to export, let's talk about exporting. Because you can save it either locally on your computer or on the cloud, on the Creative Cloud. I usually do it on the Creative Cloud. So let's go to File, Export. I wonder what generate. No, File, Export, And then you go to, I usually do quick export as PNG, and that's just a good spot to start with because it downloads your image as a PNG. You can save it all kinds of different places, name it, save, and boom, it's done. But in terms of the more detailed stuff, you can go to File, Export, Export As, and then you can get really detailed, which I'm not going to go into all this stuff, but you can get detailed with that, so that's good to know. Then, in terms of, there was one other thing. I said I would show you. Excuse me. File. Puppet Warp is a good one. I don't think I showed you that yet. Puppet Warp. So you can go to, for that, we went to, oh yes, okay, these are important tools. So it's edit menu up here, Puppet Warp. See, it was right here, Puppet Warp. What you can do is, if I click on any of these pins, you can do weird warp effects. I do not want that, so I'm just gonna Command Z. Is it gonna allow me to? Anyway, what you can basically do is add different pinpoints to where you want your puppet to move, and then just adjust it that way. Kind of like adding joints or whatever. Don't apply, please. There we go. Also, I think I found the sky replacement. You can press Edit, Sky Replacement, and that basically, if you had a sky in your image, you can replace it with another image. It has preset skies, which is pretty cool, and it's just a great way to make fast edits. Yeah, no sky was detected. Yes! So anyway, this has been Photoshop, and I hope you guys learned as much, you guys and girls and peoples, I hope you all learned as much as possible. And how do I get this? Can I get bigger? Hello. There I am. Okay, I hope you learned as much as possible. And this was very interesting. I'm pretty happy with how this tutorial came. Yeah, awesome. So, good job, and congratulations. Awesome to you. Awesome you. Yes. Yes. Goodbye for now, friends. Or are you foes? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, you did Photoshop, and I'm acting very cringy right now, so I'm going to put on my sunglasses and say goodbye for now. Ugh.